student who wrote an op-ed that was critical of Israel disappeared, right? You have hundreds of students now losing their legal status because they partook in pro-Palestine protests. And he mentioned that in the middle there. Let me make sure I didn't mishear that. I want to hear it again.
We will punish you economically for dissenting from the Affordable Care Act or the Iran deal. We will ferret out students who protest against my policies.
Yeah. All right, we got more from this speech. Here we go.
This has to do with something more precious, which is, who are we as a country and what values do we stand for? And now, this is not just an abstraction, and I think this is one of the challenges that we have. And I saw this even before the last election. I think people tend to think, democracy, rule of law, independent judiciary, freedom of the press, that's all abstract stuff because it's not affecting the price of eggs. Well, you know what? It's about to affect the price of eggs. One of the things that has distinguished us in the past has been this basic idea that we are a rules-based society. What that means is that, you know what, I can support one candidate instead of another, and I don't have to worry that the police are going to come harass me or my customers. That's what happens in other places. That's what happens in Russia. We take for granted the idea that we don't have to pay bribes or hire somebody's cousin in order to get a business permit.
The basic liberal values, what he's talking about, like having checks and balances, not having a gangster thug mafia government that would like intimidate you if you speak out against the president. This is a point I made recently, is like people did start to take basic liberal values for granted, right? And this is what it looks like when you don't have it. That's when everybody goes, oh shit. So that like that was on the menu to like get rid of those things, to actually get rid of those things. For the president of the United States to say, I'm just going to completely and utterly disregard multiple courts that told me in no uncertain terms you can't do this thing. I'm just going to disregard it. When they said, hey, you kidnapped somebody illegally and without due process sent them to an El Salvador slave labor camp. And the judge said, I know that plane's in the air. Turn that bitch around because this is not legal. And they disregarded it and said, the plane was already over international water, so you have no authority. Tee-hee. That's when people look at that and they go, oh my God, I didn't even know that that was like possible, that that was something anybody would think of as president to just, I'm just going to flagrantly disregard the courts and take away the most basic constitutional rights. That's when people realize like, oh, we took basic liberal values for granted, right? Enlightenment values for granted. And he's definitely right about this part. You know, now that they're not only on the way out, they are gone. They're already gone. When you've already kidnapped over 200 people and illegally sent them to an El Salvador slave labor camp. When Trump came out the other day and said, even if they're American citizens, yeah, we're going to send them to El Salvador. That is wildly illegal, wildly unconstitutional, and he doesn't care. And he's got the sycophants and the gangsters in place to just carry out his orders. And yes, in that moment, people go, oh, well, those things, I like it the old way. Like, I like it the old way. And we were never perfect on these things, but certainly domestically, we were way better than we are now, right? With American empire, it's almost always been the case since we became the world empire. Oh my God. If it's overseas, if it's foreign policy, they bomb whoever they want. They fucking put in puppet governments. They violate international laws, and all that stuff is horrible and totally indefensible. Domestically, though, there was always more seriousness to the system where you do, you know, if any court said to any previous president, like, hey, you can't illegally ship people to an El Salvador slave labor camp, they'd be like, okay, right? With Trump, it's just like, wrong, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. He's not done yet, though.
That's how we built the economy we did. That's why this place worked. And it has very concrete impacts on all of our lives. So This is the first time I've been speaking publicly for a while. I've been watching a little bit. Yeah. Let me just close this portion of my remarks by saying it is up to all of us to fix this. It's not going to be because somebody comes and saves you. The most important office in this democracy is the citizen, the ordinary person who says, no, that's not right.
So he's right, but he's also wrong, because there was like 1 million people who just protested Trump, 1 million people. And it was great, energetic, gives everybody hope, sends a message to them. But he's also sort of underestimating the depths of the depravity of the Trump administration, because as we discussed previously on this show, there's evidence that they, on April 20th, are going to invoke the Insurrection Act and declare martial law. And in that scenario, Trump would turn around and say, all protests are illegal, right? And the fact that he's gotten away with everything to this point means he feels emboldened. He got away with 91 crimes. Everybody knows that. Got away with January 6th and the fake elector slate. Everyone knows that. Got away with tanking the global economy on purpose, as he admits. And so when he declares martial law, what then? What then? Because yes, you need that bottom-up pressure. He's 100% right about that. But you also do sort of need leaders. You do need leaders who have positions of power and authority, who are willing to take risks and fight back. So he's not done, but I got to give you my overall takeaway from this is actually a little counterintuitive. Wait for it.
So, and I do think one of the reasons that our commitment to democratic ideals has eroded is that we got pretty comfortable and complacent. You know, it has been easy during most of our lifetimes to say you are a progressive, or say you are for social justice, or say you're for free speech, and not have to pay a price for it. And now we're at one of those moments where, you know what, it's not enough just to say you're for something. You may actually have to do something and possibly sacrifice a little bit.
I mean, there's definitely a point here, because the same thing is true with trade wars and tariffs. Roughly every 100 years, we do this. You have some psychopath who goes in there and starts a trade war and tanks the economy. And then everybody who remembers that goes, oh, let's not do that again. But the last time we did it was what? Fucking Smoot-Hawley did a serious tariffs regime. And so that was so long ago, and it exacerbated the Great Depression. Nobody's alive from that era to be like, hey, that's a bad fucking idea, right? And the people who do know, they don't have the firsthand experience of it. Same thing with massive wars, right? Massive wars break out every certain period of time because people don't remember how horrible it was, and then you'll do it again, and then the people who lived through that will go, we're not fucking doing that again, and you'll have a period of relative peace and stability. And what he's talking about is the same thing in terms of basic democratic rights, basic constitutional rights and civil liberties, free speech and things of that nature, that everybody did sort of take them for granted, and now you have some psychopath who's just willy-nilly getting rid of it. And it's like, oh, fuck, wait a second, don't do that.
So, yeah, if you're a law firm being threatened, you might have to say, okay, we will lose some business because we're going to stand for a principle.
And so many of them didn't. So many of them caved. Trump basically extorted these law firms, said, I'm signing an executive order to target you, stripping away your ability to do any business with the government, et cetera, et cetera. And a bunch of them were like, what do you want? What do you want? $40 million pro bono legal work? Fine. Got it. Thankfully, there was just a letter that came out. I think it was hundreds of law firms are standing up against it. But some of the biggest name law firms did the opposite. And we're like, we'll cave to Trump, whatever you want, dog.
If you are a university, you may have to say, figure out, are we in fact doing things right? Have we in fact violated our own values, our own code, violated the law in some fashion? If not, and you're just being intimidated, well, you should be able to say, well, that's why we got this big endowment. We'll stand up for what we believe in, and then we'll pay our researchers for a while out of that endowment, and we'll give up the extra wing or the fancy gymnasium that we can delay that for a couple of years, because academic freedom might be a little more important.